You ever have those days to where you're just tired of dealing with junk? You're tired of dealing with arrogant people. You're tired of dealing with difficult circumstances in life. You just want to get away. You just want to relax. Maybe you need to pray. Maybe you need to, I don't know, just get away from it all. Take a vacation. You know, Romans chapter 12, it tells us to be transformed by the renewing of your mind and to test. And by doing so, you can test and approve what the will of God actually is, what is good and acceptable and perfect, that you can discern these things. The very next sentence, it tells us, gives us a little insight as to how we can discern these things, how we can test these things. It talks about walking by faith, the faith that God has assigned to each individual. And to understand what he's talking about, we must answer the question, well, what is faith? What do I understand about faith? How is faith portrayed in my life? Do I have an intellectual consent that he is who he says he is and I just continue on with my life? No. He says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. How do we test these things? Well, faith is an action word. Faith is believing, in this case, believing in Christ, believing in God, believing in the things that he said, the claims that he made so much that it becomes who you are. That's faith. Abraham, it gives us examples in the Bible of men of faith. Noah, he built the ark because he believed God. It was counted to him as righteousness. Abraham, the Lord told him, go to a land where I will show you. He went. He believed God. He acted upon the fact that God told him, even though he did not have any children in his 90s, that God would make his descendants as much as the sand of the sea and the stars of the sky. Everything that he did, his life acted on those things. God has assigned you, God has assigned me certain things in this life. And the days that we want to get away, the days that we want to just get away from it all, the tough days, those are the days that test our faith. Those are the days that give us the ability to test what is the will of God, what is good, what is acceptable and perfect. Those are the days that we must walk by faith, that we have the opportunity to walk by faith. Will you let those days pass you by? Will you stand up in the face of adversity and say, my God is bigger than you? Will you shrink back in fear? That's what he means by being transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. That is the way that we actually walk and grow in the measure of faith that God has assigned to each individual that hears my voice. The Apostle Paul says, "For by the grace given to me, I say to every one among you not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think." Some of us, we say we're tired of these things. We don't deserve these things. We get down on ourselves, sink in depression. But God's will, which is good, acceptable, and perfect, when we discern it rightly, we say, we don't say, "Poor, pitiful me." We stand up and look it straight in the face and say, guess what my God did? He faced the cross. He was beaten, unrecognizably beaten to the point of death. His hands were pierced. His feet were nailed to a piece of wood. Could you imagine? What a measure of faith he was assigned. Will you follow him? Do you truly, truly believe he is who he says he is? If you do, you'll be transformed by the renewing of your minds.